It's like I dread doing cleanup work like I would rather comp the vocal while the artist is there
Yes, for
and
sure.
just have
Oh,
a
yeah.
final vocal. You know what I
That's
mean?
a big
Then
thing for
say,
me, for
okay, that was
sure.
good. Let me do this afterwards because I'm not going to want to do it afterwards
Yep.
when they leave. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to want to.
Especially comping
You know?
vocals, it's such a personal thing. I've learned from working with so many artists, even songwriters every day. They are so particular, and they should be, because it's the most important part of what they do is their voice. Otherwise, what do they have? They just have a track, right? So I always try to comp with the artist, like, because they're gonna know things about their voice and what they like and don't like about their voice more than I'm gonna like. And maybe I'll like something that they don't like about their voice, and then that's a problem because I send them that as like, and he or she'll be like, I hate this verse. I don't like when I sing things like that. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, maybe I liked it. So I always try to comp with the artist because I trust them so much of, like, again, they know themselves and they know what they're going for so much better than I do because I'm coming in for a day or even a week. You know, when I have a week with an artist, if we're doing an EP, whatever, a week's not that long of a time still even. You know what I mean? Like they know those things so much better than me. So I really heavily rely on them to kind of tell me those things about their vocal.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think I could get most of the way with the comp by myself, but I think I have a pretty good ear for comping, but there always is going to be like one or two edits,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
where
Yeah. It just makes me feel better. Yeah.
But your reason is even better of a reason. Like it's just like, let's do this here, you know, while you can tell me this is what you like, you know, and they kind of sign off on it.
Yep,
even,
they give me the checkbox
while they're in the room.
Exactly. And I mean, a lot of times I'll be like, I don't ask them to sit next to me and like stare at my screen, but I'll be like, I'll just tell them before I start comping, hey, if there's anything you hate, let me know. And I'll just start comping and they'll stop me. Oh, hey, can we take out that? Like, can we replace that? Okay, absolutely. Like yesterday with Brooke, there was this word I forgot in the second verse and she didn't quite connect it. She did more of like a syncopated thing with it. And I comped that in. She was listening back. She was like, I hate how I do that. Can you get one of the takes when I like swoop into that note instead? I'm like, absolutely. First of all, yes. And second of all, I would never have thought of that. But you know what I mean? So I'm glad you're here because I just comped that other thing because I thought that was cool for some reason. You know what I mean? So they're just like small things like that. And then the artist inevitably leaves like way more excited about what they have because they're like super stoked on how they sound, you know? It's just like...
Yeah. I've had that also several times where it's like you make this random comp because the artist says something and it just works and you're just like, okay, cool.
Yep.
You're keeping it.
Exactly. It's part of the magic. You don't know why, you know?
Yeah, that's just one of those things. Talk a little bit about your setup these days. Like you're in a bedroom studio, you're about to move into a new studio. Like, you know, how in the box are you? What does it look like?
Yeah. So right now for the next 10 days, I'm in... my wife and I have a house in Burbank, and it's in the second bedroom of the house. You can see, you know, I kind of made it into a studio. Where we will be moving in 10 days is still in Burbank down the street, but it's a house, but it has a guest house in the back. And so I'm converting that actually into like a real actual, like, I mean, not that this isn't a real studio, but you know, like just like its own space, you know what I mean? Back there. You know,
I feel like that's the best. I just spoke with Andrew Mari, who I already mentioned on this episode, and he told me, I'm in the back part of that, like the separate house in the backyard. And it's like that's the best because then you get the home studio and you get like out of the house.
Exactly. I don't want to be gone all day. You know what I mean? Like today for Anchor, I'm doing this, and then I have to, oddly enough, comp and melody on a vocal for production that I've been putting off for 2 weeks. But in between that, I can like hang out with Jen because Jen, my wife, works from home, you know, because of the baby and stuff like that. So, you know, or when I finish the session at 7 or 8 o'clock, I can just walk inside. I don't have to clean up the studio, shut everything down. I can just, you know, it's just like the perfect situation for me. So I'm stoked on that. With that being said, I'm a firm believer that you can make amazing music anywhere on your AirPods or on your laptop speakers. Some of the best music I love and I'm so into is very rarely made in a very meticulous studio. You know what I mean? So I'm a firm believer in it's all about the idea. It's not about the the Lil Uzi Vert song, XO Tour Life. He did that on his laptop with a Beat Pill speaker. That whole album. I mean, that whole song, God. And it has over 1 billion streams right now. So.
That's insane.
It's sound selection and you know your sounds, you know arrangement, and you know what you want. You don't have to have anything fancy, honestly. You know, even in the new studio I'm making in the back house, it's not a bunch of fancy gear. Like, for instance, you told me to walk you through what I have. So I have my MacBook Pro, I have some folk house speakers, which I trust a lot. I have I have a 1073 preamp out here, which is great. And then I have my Apollo Twin, and then just my headphone splitters, and that's really all I need, and then just I have good paneling, in the studio to make it sound good in here, just to know where the bass is and stuff. But everything you heard, hopefully you liked it, but everything was done just with that. You know what I mean? So just those few things. So, yeah.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. I got the 1073 because I was like, okay, I just want really great vocals and really good guitar bass sounds because I rely so heavily on those things. So the 1073 does that. It's just the one channel. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was the only thing I really needed. Eventually I'm sure I've been interested in the 1176, and stuff like that. I might build onto some of it eventually, but it's not like a need. It's just more like, oh, I want that. I think that would be cool to have, you know what I mean? But I've worked on major label records and it's all run through this, you know what I mean? So as long as it sounds good, it is good. That's what I always say, if it was done,
absolutely.
Nobody knows when they listen to a song through their iPhone speaker or on the AirPods or even on the best studio monitors in the world. If it was done in a $1 million studio or if it was done on a pill, a Beats pill, it just does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel something? That's the most important thing, so.
Right. Luckily, we have mastering engineers who could kind of check off the box and
also
say okay, cool.
Yep. If you listen to modern music too, you listen to Olivia Rodrigo's song, good for you. You listen to Dua Lipa, you listen to DaBaby. If you listen to if you just take a listen and sonically actually listen to all those things, they are so vastly different. That Good For You song really does sound like a garage alternative rock song. That doesn't sound good. It just sounds fairly lo-fi compared to even what pop punk was 20 years ago, like Paramore and stuff like that. Was super polished, that song's not that polished around the edges, and they were obviously going for that, But then you listen to Dua Lipa, it's a very expensive production, the best studios in the world that was recorded in, you know what I mean? And then you have someone like DaBaby who's literally his producers are just doing their beats on laptops and then they're sending it to mix. You know what I mean? So it's if you listen to those things sonically, they have nothing in common, but they're all in the top 10. The only thing that really they all have in common is that they make people feel either good, bad, angry, happy, excited. They all make people feel something and it connects with the listener, and that's what it's all about. People lose sight on that sometimes. It's oh, I have to have this little thing and this piece of gear to make it sound great or this plugin. It's it's really all about the song, man. If you don't have a good song, it doesn't matter,
I love that, man. I love that little, I don't want to call it a tirade, but that rant. Yeah, I love it, man. It's so good. It's such a good point because, there really is no right or wrong anymore in this day and age. And you're totally right. Different genres, different styles, they all work as long as the artist is doubling down on themselves. And the audience is connecting with it.
Yeah,
on a real
Billie
level.
Eilish. She's the poster child for that. I know, so it's almost cliche to bring it up, but
I know.
Finished in the bedroom. No bigger than the one I'm in now, and they had a number one record. Again, cliche. I know to bring it up, but it is the best example of that in modern music. Of it really is just about the songs,
Right, but you do have to say that these. For production, I think it's totally enough. But a lot of these people are still sending out to pro mixers who are listening in treated environments, and
for sure, I'm not.
And it's getting.
Yeah, I'm talking more about on the production side of stuff and songwriting stuff.
The energy and the energy, and the creative.
I would agree with you that it all ends up in amazing mix engineers and mastering engineers' hands to make sure that even whatever sonically they built still sounds the best it can be, even if it's vastly different from. Olivia Rodrigo's completely different than DaBaby, completely different than, Billie Eilish, but it always ends up in professionals' hands that bring it to that, okay, this is the best record it's going to sound for what sonic they were going for. I do agree with you on that. I'm speaking purely from a production, songwriting, creative standpoint of
I'm with you, man. Yeah. I just need to, I don't even know. I don't have to do anything. I'm just saying I'm going to shut up.
No, it's true though. Cause my friend Dave, who's my master engineer, would kill me probably if I didn't say it. You know what I mean? Cause it's I value him so much because he makes whatever I do sonically, after I mix it or whoever mixed it, it does make it sound oh dude, this sounds finished now. You know what I mean?
Now it's a record. Yeah.
I'm actually not a proponent for doing everything yourself either. If I mix it, I don't master anyway, but even if they wanted to, I was no, I need somebody else's on. You know what I mean? I'm a big proponent for sending things out for mix and mastering and things like that to get a third, fourth, fifth, whatever E on it. You know what I mean? Because I do trust that process a lot. And people with better gear than me, the reason I sent to Dave for mastering is his ear is amazing. And in mastering, the gear actually does matter a lot. He has amazing gear that he runs through tape and everything like that, and it does make it sound that much better, So there is a ton of place for all that, of course,
Absolutely. Yeah. In terms of mixing, are you usually mixing in the session you do the production in, or do you export it, start over? What does that look like?
What I'll usually do is, that's a good question actually. So I'll set up a mix session. And then, well, in Logic, you can do like an alternative, if you know that, you know what I mean? So it's almost like a save as, and then I'll print everything. And like, so everything's MIDI usually, well, not everything, but like I still keep the MIDI in there until it's ready to mix, just in case there needs to be any changes or whatnot. And so I'll print everything that needs to be printed, and then I'll mix, and then I'll put everything down to 0, and then I'll start the mix from there. You know what I mean? So usually I guess it is kind of like starting another session, because then I do my bus channels and everything like that. So it is kind of like a separate mix session. I do everything in,
Nice. You do like just import like separate data, or you just kind of as needed?
As needed. Yeah, as needed, I have like a lot of settings and things saved for like I know my 808s really well, the ones I use. So I have like an 808 channel a channel strip that I'll like put on it and kind of see what works and what doesn't work with that specific song. You know what I mean? Like things like that. You know what I mean? I'll have like certain things I go to a lot to kind of like mold and shape sounds afterwards, in the mixing process.
I love saving channel strips in Logic. I do that all the time.
It's so underrated, actually. You can do it so much, and like I have so many, and it's really good for like I have a lot of like vocal chop things saved, and like when somebody wants something like really weird and odd in the background, I'll just bust it on. They're like, oh yeah, that's like exactly, that's cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like just small things like that can take a production to the next level. So
yeah, having that in your back pocket.
Yeah, dude, exactly. It's all about those things that like you just like a Swiss Army knife of things. You know what I mean? It's, oh, you want that? You want some? Okay, I got something like that. I was like, oh, you just got to know where
the
to
bag
go
of
for those.
tricks.
The bag of tricks. Exactly. Yeah. I try to be pretty organized with my stuff. So
how hot is Splice these days? Because I'm debating. I still haven't used it after all the people I've interviewed. Should I get on the Splice train?
Oh, don't have it?
I haven't used it yet. No, I mean, I have loops on my hard drive,
Sure.
and I have obviously Apple loops and stuff, and I do a lot of programming myself, but
Right.
But yeah, haven't been using Splice.
I use Splice a lot, dude. I mean, it's not my only thing, you know what I mean? But it is like one of my main things, I'd say. Specifically for drums and things like that, because it's such a vast. If I want like a different kind of live drum sample, they probably have it. You know what I mean? Melodic loops I use it for. I'm not gonna lie, but a lot of times I'll augment them a lot. Like I'll either put in a melodon, I'll change the chords around, or I'll just like completely like change the key tempo. I'll put like a tremolator on and I'll EQ it out. You know what I mean? Like I don't typically. Not that there's anything wrong with that anyway. I mean, dude, the loops are there for you to use. If you just like the melodic loop, fuck it, it's a song right over it. You know what I mean? Like that's fine. Me personally, I like to kind of make it my own a little bit more, but I mean, I'll use melodic loops. I mean, that in that song, that King L song, So What? That the basis of that main little piano, that's a Splice loop that I used. I changed the tempo. I changed the chords around inside a Melodyne, and then I just reprinted it out and did my own thing with it. But that started as a Splice loop, and I think it's really handy because it's almost like having another collaborator in the room with you. And that's how I look at it anyway. It's like, oh, it's just like if I bring my friend Kevin in, or my friend to play guitar, or my friend Dan in to play keys, whatever. It's like it's the same thing as having somebody else's mind there with you. That's how I look at like something like Splice and like loops and things like that,
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like inspiration and like just staying inspired to get in the studio. Like, do you have any practices to stay inspired, stay fresh? Like, we all have days where we're less hyped to get in,
Sure.
and days where we're super hyped to get in.
Yeah.
How do you get in the zone?
I actually do have like a very. We talked about this like maybe like we barely touched on it last time, I remember. But I have. I consider part of my job as a producer is to like keep up with music and like study music,
Right.
like modern music. So,
I remember this.
Yeah. So I have a list on my phone every Monday. I'll start it of all the releases that are gonna be coming out that Friday that I want to listen to. Right? You know what I mean? So I have a list on my phone, and then when Thursday night hits, I'll go in, I'll download them, and then usually Friday at some point, I like to do it when I first wake up. If not, if I have a session that day and I can't do it, then I'll do it Saturday morning. I'll listen. I'll intentively listen, and I'll study the song, and I'll write down the things I like about it, into a note on my phone. Hey, I like how they did that little drum fill. Oh, I like that arrangement. Like, why did they drop out to just hat and guitar there instead of going big? Whatever it is, like whatever arrangement thing or vocal thing I like, I'll just write it down for me to remember for another time. And then a lot of times when I'm feeling uninspired, or if I just feel like I want to shake things up, I'll go through that list, and I'll usually reference the song in the list. So it's in parentheses, I'll be like, whatever, like, like Billie Eilish, whatever song, and then I'll go back and I'll listen to it, and then hopefully that'll like spark something in me for that day if I'm not feeling too inspired. Like, oh, you know what? I should maybe try something like that today. That'd be kind of fun. You know what I mean? Like things like that. Because when you're in session 4 or 5 days a week, dude, like, yeah, there's days when you're feeling the lag on it, like a little bit, So that for me, not only is it my job, because a lot of times people come in and want, oh, I love that song that, X, Y, and Z released last week. Like, can we do something like that today? Like, what are they doing to those drums? You know what I mean? So that's my job to be like,